Hello, everyone. Today, the topic for discussion would be interview. During the course of our growing up, and perhaps during career, we have come across this process on quite a number of times. Either we were interviewed or we were interviewing someone else. So basically, let me introduce to the term called interview and how well can we prepared for it so that we hire the right talent or the right employee. First and foremost, there are few things that we need to be clarifying. What are they? If you just wanted to notify it, it's your organization talent policy. Describe it. Does your organization or company looking for young, spunky talent, having an energetic, vibrant environment, or it should be completely filled with totally professional, experienced, talented fellows who are serious about their job, or should the organization would have a mix of both young generation and senior most people, talented people, articulate fellows, a serious mix of them. So you need to describe them. Explain behavioral interviews. We will be talking about it, and probably how can you make an impact onto it. We need to understand what job we are getting into, what job we are hiring for. The job analysis needs to be done with a critical incident technique. This is very important. Develop and update job description. Definitely rate your expectation for the position, that the position that you're going to hire for. What are the legalities, the legal requirements? Probably you need to answer them and get your queries clarified during the interview process. Implement the best practices of conducting a behavioral interviews, and definitely making the go through this thing. Talent organization is what we are going to go around in. Now, please, for the purpose of this presentation, remember talent and employee are synonymous in nature. They can be used in interchange one another as often and more often than not. Talent and employees. So, what kind of knowledge and skills are required, or what kind of knowledge and skills are you looking for? So you need to understand the organization talent philosophies. Young employees, older employees, mix of young and older employees. It should be a raw talent, it should be a qualified talent, it should be a time tested talent, the way you want to go around it. So articulate your goals in terms of KSO. What is KSO? K stands for knowledge, S stands for skills, A for attitudes, and O for other characteristics, primarily motives, values, principles, and so on and so forth. We'll talk about behavioral interviews and give you a brief overview what exactly is all about it. So, what is behavioral interview? What are the purpose? You are putting a person or the incumbent into a particular situation and look how he or she reacts to it. What are the outcomes that he goes into it? If it is a high pressure job, if the job involves deadline and meeting those deadline is a must kind of thing. So behavioral job interview takes a precedence because the incumbent is in a high pressure situation all the time. Articulate your role as a hiring manager in the interview process. So, exactly what is an interview process? It's basically nothing but a structured form of interviewing. Behavioral interview is a structured form of an interview which basically deals or dwells on candidate past experiences, past behaviors, existing knowledge, acquired skills, and the abilities thereof. So it involves candidates to provide specific example where he or she can demonstrate his successes and failures, perhaps if the incumbent has come across any hiccups in his or her career, and probably we can learn a lot from them. Serves as a means of predicting the future performance of the candidate. Now this tells me how flexible the candidate is all about it. Flexible in adapting to the situation, flexible in learning a new skills, flexible to become a vibrant team. So interview techniques. There are two interviews usually we can go around for, is the traditional interviews which is almost of non-descriptive in nature, and behavioral interviews, probably much more structured and much more streamlined. So traditional interviews has loose framework. It can go from jump from one topic to another topic. It is discretionary in content. Probably the interviewer or the interviewee can both can manipulate the process altogether. Conversational flow, because anyway any one of the interviewer or the interview can take the direction of the conversation to the desired result or to the desired outcome that he or she wishes to be. Candidate may be asked different questions, random questions. Absolutely, there are no standardization rating scale, because every candidate is dealt individually, and they are to be treated in silos. They cannot be compared with one another. As such, the same question have been not been added to, the same format is not been added to, the same time frame for each interviews are not been added to. So no standardized rating scale exists, and interviewers do not need to agree on an acceptable answer. Probably they all agree to disagree also, and susceptible to legal challenges. This is what the traditional interviews is all about. Income behavioral interviews, all candidates are asked exactly the same question, and in the same fashion, in the same hierarchy. All candidates are evaluated on the responses they have been giving on a particular scale, and this scale has to be relevant, one, and same, two, for all of them, all of the candidates. Interviewers are in agreement or acceptable answers. So we have preformed answers also with a fair degree of flexibility. Consistency reduce legal challenges. Definitely nobody can contest it. So behavioral interviews, and think back about organization talent philosophy. Did I say about vibrant and young employees, or older and matured employees, or a mix of young and a vibrant employees? Or did I say all has to be university graduate, or some has to be university graduate, some has to have the technical know-how, some just has to have an acumen? What kind of mix of talent philosophy that the organization believes in? Why? Why, I repeat, as an organization wants to have an interview, behavioral interviews for the acquisition. Now, this is where we going to discuss this particular. This is the slide which will come time and again, and I would love to talk everything. We have already said this. We will be talking about job analysis, competencies, behavioral question, rating scale, and probably making a higher decision would be my last thing. So this is the journey that I am going to follow, and probably navigate all of you towards the end of the presentation, when we will have a complete interviewing process at our disposal. So behavioral interview questions. The topic gives you knowledge and skills necessary to understand the question that a behavioral interview must be relevant or must be applicable as such. Now, how do you develop such question? Number one, you used to study their past behaviors, their connection with a critical job related KSAO, knowledge, skills, attitude, and other competencies. Now, you have your job role, you have the job analysis, and you have the prospective incumbent. Now you just have to marry each one of them, role with the analysis of the job and with the incumbent who can do most and maximum justice to. So that is what behavioral interview process would be all about it. Now we will talk about behavioral questions. What are they? So let us have some lead question which can be open ended. We would like to open the interviews, and probably it might be as simple as it as just tell me something about your background, probably your educational background, and probably pick it from there, or your experience, your past experience and recent experiences. So I have provided you certain things, like tell me about the time, probably what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, probably given a relevant example where you were actually stressed out, or given relevant example where you made a definitive difference to the company. So these are the open-ended questions that can be uh, put forth towards the candidate. and elicit a short story from the candidate. This will make the candidate relax during the interview process and open up to the ideas of all kind of situations and probably give an very candid answer. Now there comes the probing questions, follow-up question. Initial answers are vague and do not address the lead question. So if you look into it, once you start making a follow-up question to these questions that I have already given you, some of them, and then the candidate you might see might get pressured upon. Absolutely. He might or she might have difficulties in answering, and how he or she dwells upon the situation and deals with it and comes out of the sticky situation if he finds himself or herself one. So, probing for more information. So, what are some behaviors that you witnessed in the past interviews that would prompt you to probe for more information from candidate? Now, there might be certain candidate who might be very finicky, probably very serious, and believe me or not, he might be a very poor performer during the interview process. But if you are competent interviewer, you will able to guess or probably judge that in the job this person should be excelling. Why? Because under stress or under scrutiny, the candidates often break up, but probably the job which he is applying or she is applying for doesn't require that amount of stress that needs to be going around. So, behavior interview question has to have certain premonitions. Now, we'll talk about individual contributors, what to focus, and who the supervisors or the managers are all about it. So, will the candidate be able to perform the role effectively? Please do not judge the person, do not judge the incumbent. Please try to marry the person with the job or the role that you are deciding for or hiring for. So, candidate has to able to perform the job effectively. Does he or she understand the role and the proper KSAO, knowledge, skill, attitude, and other competencies? And does he or she becomes a will gel with the existing team member? This is very big questions to be answered. This one especially. So, for supervisors, you need to understand what inspired the candidate as a leader. Will he or she shrug responsibilities or own up the responsibility? That is the basic quality of having a success, of being a successful leader. What is the candidate's style of working? Probably his leadership style. Now, this style that the candidate displayed, does it match with the culture? Does it match with the ethos of the organization? And what behavior, ethical behavior we are looking at from the candidate? How good, how bad, or how ugly can he get to meet his objective? Or will he be detrimental to the organization or not? For supervisor, these are the questions to be focused around. Now, talking about legal troubles, I would request um, any organization with more than 15, 20 regular employees, full-time employees, you should avoid legal troubles altogether. Now, what are the legal troubles in terms of sex, in terms of race, color, national origin, and religion? Do not have any biasness for them. No biasness. Treat everyone on an equal parameters, on an equal platform, and let us not discriminate. Probably if you give a chance for a discrimination, things might. So what do we not do? Do not lead or avoid languages such as tell me about a time when you successfully perform. This avoid guiding languages. Now, what is guiding languages? It tells you to tell me your strength. Absolutely, tell me your strength. Or probably you could have been framed it out here. Highlighted situation where you were under a limelight. Now, this particular situation might be a good one or a bad one. So, this type of activity and behavior, doesn't it bothers you? Do not lead, do not probe or give a leading questions to it. Do not judge a person or do not tap a particular point, weak point, pain points, and so on and so forth. As an organization, We require these type of behavior. How do you feel? What is these type of behavior? Probably a salutation, or probably calling by first name, or probably being on time, and devoting more time on your desk, on your job, on your role, beyond the so-called official hours, and so on and so forth. Behavioral question in terms of STAR model, STAR. Please understand, S stands for situation, T for task, A for action, and R for result. So define the situation. Why the candidate is looking for a job. One, what task? Now define. Was in the same task, or he is upgrading himself to the new job profile that you are offering at all? So what are the tasks the candidate need to accomplish? Based upon it, does the candidate has the requisite skills, requisite qualification to accomplish the task? So you have STA, and then comes your result. Based upon your interaction, you have a fair bit of an idea how the STAR model works for question development. You need to find out the situation, you need to marry the situation with the task that has been probed upon into it. What kind of action that the candidate has, the qualification, the accomplishment to perform well in the situation and the task, and then you are coming with a result. So just giving you an idea, absolutely giving you an idea about any questions or any of the job position we understand key SEO, right? It's knowledge, skill, attitude, and other competencies. O stands for other competencies. Now for any of this thing, any of select any of thing, perhaps knowledge, perhaps values under other competencies, perhaps attitude, perhaps skills. Now select any two. You don't need to select four five thing kind of thing, any two, and write one or two behavior based lead question. Believe me or not, behavior based lead question, and out comes the pigeon altogether, because that will make the candidate come out from his or her shell and be open towards you, and then probably have a follow up probing question for each of the lead questions that goes around. Now we come to the rating guides topic. Now, how do we rate? We need to state one, define one, and please understand this rating guide has to be administered to each and every candidate or each and every incumbent who applies for the job and for whom you have been interviewing. So, developing a rating scale or guide to support the implementation of a behavioral interview guide, be it a Likert scale, be it a forced ranking method, whichever rating scale that you're looking at it, find it, do the same thing. So we are still in the middle way of the interview process. Now we have come into rating scale or the guide scale, wherein all X, Y, Z, or n numbers of candidate who has been interviewed, now we can put them on the same platform and probably value their contribution on an equal parameters, and then we see who good or bad. So rating scale. So based on which candidates are evaluated. It can be knowledge, it can be punctuality, it can be attitude as such of go-getters, attitude as such as uh, mm, time schedulers, attitude such as happy and chirpy by nature altogether. Whatever rating scale that you're looking at it, can you take the pressures and things like that? If you have skills, or probably if in an IT language, if you have Java skills, if you have C plus skills, if you have COBOL skills, if you have coding, if you know Python, if you know Visual Basic, should be easy to understand, well defined. So everything has been well defined, both technical knowledge and attitude knowledge. Should define criteria that ties suggested to the answer rating of each of the rating. Now you have preformed question. Now all and almost you will have radio buttons for preformed answer also. So basically you have designed the rating scale. Now using this rating scale, have the rating guys you used to tie each level of your rating scale to a behavioral example, and you can do it out of 5, out of 10, out of 9. scales based on out of 9. Maybe I know Python as a language for coding, right? So that means I'm at an intermediate levels, at a beginner's level, or at an fluency level, fluent level. So based upon it, I get on a scale of 5, I might be marked 2, 4, or 5. So that is what we were going to go around it. If it is HTML, I'm just giving you an brief idea for you to understand how to define the scale and then start rating it vis-a-vis the other candidate. So used by interviews to support the use of rating. Now, rating guides are all about rating scales. Now, what does an interviewer rating scale look like? Everybody has to go around it. Now, it can be a dictum that you are going for a presentation and you are making a very elaborate presentation. What happens? Making an elaborate presentation, you actually lose the client interest. So we need to have a presentation which is impactful and at the same time concise. So these are the things that needs to be noted down. So developing a rating guide, select one, again any one, be it knowledge, skills, attitude, or other competencies for which you wrote a lead question. Using the comment from the critical exercise based on the lead question, right? Remember, I have asked you to mention a lead question with an open-ended thing which the candidate needs to be can manipulate or give his own input, and do not, I repeat, do not have a leading question to a particular saying ki highlight your strengths or highlight your weaknesses. Let's say you were highlight one of the position which is very memorable for you. Now he might come with a weaknesses, or he might come or she might come with a strength. So that shows his or her attitude altogether. And develop sample answer that would satisfy each rating scale. Now we are actually in the process of conducting interview. First and foremost, develop training to prepare interviews, to conduct behavioral interviews. You will see people coming with all different style of answers, absolutely different style of answer. Coordinate behavioral interviews that meets your requirements, your legalities, your structure, your team, your existing employees. If you cannot draw a relationship, please don't hire the incumbent or the candidate, and try to implement certain key behaviors associated with the strong interview practices that is there. Now we come to the interview process altogether. This is where we are looking at training the interviews and probably conducting the interview. Very sure. Now we have the hiring managers. Now you look into it, hiring managers. They are basically independently observers and documenting every of the candidates' uh, behaviors, anything and everything that the candidate displays. So only one viewpoint and potential for biasness. Now, this is for only when there's a hiring manager. He and she can go for biasness provided about his personal requirement. But in case if you want to eliminate the hiring manager altogether, we can have something called a panel interview. You see a lot many people are there in the panel. So wherein there are more than one, two, three, probably more than two interviews in a single interview. Now you remove the biasness that was there. So reduce the biasness and multiple viewpoints creeps in. And final rating. So somebody has been evaluating all these four gentlemen, two gentlemen and two ladies. All these four person are evaluating the candidate, and everybody's evaluation needs to be averaged out to come to a final score. That is what the final rating would be all about it. And then we have something called same process of hiring managers only and panel interview. Can we have a best of these two processes? Is multiple stakeholder. Now, what is multiple stakeholders? That means there would be one-to-one interviews, but one-to-one with this lady, then this gentleman, absolutely, then probably this lady again, and then probably we will have with this lady, with this gentleman altogether. So one to one with this and this person, then this person, then this person. Remember, we are not having a panel interview. This is a multiple interviews conducted in a serial fashion, and everybody will form their own viewpoint, and then again the final rating would come for a discussion and consensus. So key interview behaviors: come prepared, have a writing board within yourself, dress well, act professional, and explain the process. Make the candidate very comfortable. Most importantly, have no loopholes as far as legality of the interviews are concerned. There should not be use of any foul languages. There should not be any leading question. There should not be any debatable topic that can be brought about it. Avoid leading questions. Did I say appropriate body language and so on and so. Tips for active listening: maintain eye contact. Very true. Once you are showing, if you are taking active interest in what the candidate is saying, the candidate will be more eager to say more things. If you are writing something, keep on nodding your head so that it shows you are interested. Keep on nodding. Probably look forward towards an interesting thing, and allow the incumbent, allow the candidate, allow the person to complete his or her thoughts. Absolutely, do not interrupt. Remain neutral, and if required, you just do not contradict, but paraphrase what he or she has said to you, so as to summarize the information and ensure that your understanding is the right understanding. Identify red flags. Now, what are red flags? If you see, there might be person who might have a short acumen. They might be there might be tempers which might be flaring. Avoid such kind of candidates. Successful candidates having strong active listeners. Please understand, you if you after the leading question, if you go to the probing question, how the candidate is behaving in a particular fashion. If he or she become fidgety, or if he or she become defensive in nature, probably these are the people who are to be avoided for the long run. So identified what red flags the candidates are displaying. This is very, very sure. And probably even as a panel interview or a multiple stakeholders interviews, you will exchange with your colleagues. Note taking tips. Probably write everything or document everything that can be taking place. Better if it can be videoed. Absolutely better. So balance your note taking with your eye contact. Avoid judgment. Don't give your personal inputs in your note altogether, and avoid rating candidate response before they have before they leave the interview rooms. This is very, very unethical. Now, behavioral interview questions is you have created. Work with your partners to find each other's strengths and weaknesses, and practice these techniques. Discuss them vibrantly with your colleagues, and legally define probing question. We come to the last end of the topic, wherein we are making the hire, probably hiring a person for the new job. Now, how do we go around it so that there are no biasness, there are no legal objections? So we have an inter-rater agreement, exchange notes as to who has given or who has awarded what kind of points or marks to the interview. Speak with all the stakeholders in the behavioral interview process. Take their inputs, give your inputs, come to a conclusion, and document them. Maintain all appropriate documentation. This will help you when the person has been appointed 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year down the lane. If he or she is working for such a long fashion, there might be critical incident that might have creep up, and in his or her profile, it everything would be mentioned as to what was looked into. So behavioral interview process, all my information are collected and hiring decision has been taken out here. So this is what we are talking around. So inter-rater agreement is very true. Have the same expectation from all the candidates or same candidates. Have all the interviewers are on the same page. Have they studied it? Do they agree that the particular candidate has a similar pluses and similar cons in his uh, scheme of things? Agree to have consensus. We have been talking about having a consensus. Very so debriefing meeting is all interviewers who should attend. It should everybody should attend in the debriefing. You should come to the conclusion as to who is making the hire. It is as a team you are making the hire, and believe me or not, if you are hiring a person and the person leaves within 90 days or 180 days, probably your credibility as a hirer or as a hiring manager would be put into a question. When should it take place? Immediately after each candidate interview. at the end of the day, if possible, or at the end of the round. Huh. So, after all candidates have been completed, exchange note. What should be the discussion include? First impression, and please understand, have votes altogether. First impression voting. If somebody has given extraordinary rating, be it on the positive side or on the negative side, probe them why so, and then have a final voting and come to the conclusion of what can be done. These needs to be documented and retained in the annual profile of the candidate. the the employee profile needs to be maintained meticulously, because this was all about final hiring. So we have job analysis, job description, everything taking place, and I have completely given you a uh, give you an idea of what exactly an interview process is all about, it what is the importance of an interview process, and how can you be making a correct, right, and impactful interviews. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you have enjoyed it.